3, hit it!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And if you'd like to get a deeper understanding of the kinds of things I talk about each week in this podcast, check out our free basic course in the Inside Out Understanding at michaelneill.org/basic course. The title for this week's episode is not actually based on the old 1950s TV show where somebody's going to come out with a big red book and tell your story. And if you think, how old do you think I am? I'm not that old either, but I've seen reruns on TV. And instead, it's a reflection on one of the most common questions that I get asked towards the end of a coaching intensive or a live program. And inevitably, when somebody spends time on one of our programs or working one-on-one with me, just because of the nature of the work that we do together, they find themselves feeling much more confident than they might be used to. Often they say that they got their mojo back, or they feel really peaceful, or life looks really hopeful. And then somewhere on that final day that we're together, whether it was a year-long course or a 3-day intensive, or sometimes even if it was just a couple of hours working together one-on-one, the question arises, how am I gonna keep this up when I get back to my real life? How am I going to stay this way? How am I going to remember this when I'm back to real life? And I used to hear that question as a real question. And I used to work with people and we'd think about it. We'd kind of almost practice being back in the world from that place. And then one day I realized that it kind of never really worked. And I got curious about that. It kind of puzzled me. And so I sat with it. And then one day I realized, the reason that it doesn't work is because your quote unquote real life only exists in your thinking. Your actual real life is this moment now. You, wherever you are, listening to my voice, is your life. Not the life you think you will be going back to when you're done listening. Not all the thinking you were in before the podcast that you think you're going to go back to after it's done. In fact, I remember the first time we were on one of our 3-day infinite potential, infinite possibilities, small group coaching, and it was an amazing one. They're often great, but this one was just particularly beautiful. And we were kind of, I'm not a big sitting in silence guy, but we kind of were there, where there was nothing left to say, but there was so much sweet feeling in the air, and I almost saw like a shadow pass over the eyes of one of the participants. And they got a very earnest look on their face, and they asked the question, hey, how do I keep this feeling going when I'm back to my real life? And that was the first time I heard the irony in the question. And I said to them, you mean back in the real life you're thinking about in your head that doesn't exist outside of your head? And they laughed because in that moment they saw it too. The life we think about, the life that when we're talking about our life story, that's not your life. That's your story of your life. It's your life story. And we spend so much time working on our life story that we often miss out on living our life, on actually being where we are and doing what we do. This is your life. This moment now. This admittedly one-sided conversation that you and I are having right now. This is your life. How's your life? How's life? Now, I know from experience that even if you're hurting right now, life's pretty good. And when you're not thinking about your life story and what you're afraid is going to happen next, or remembering happened earlier, life itself is pure aliveness. It is what we are all made of, and it is what we are all made for. And any time you notice that this is my life, life's pretty damn good. Have fun, learn heaps, happy exploring, and I'll talk with you soon.